0. Hello, and welcome to Richard and Carl present Deep Space and Dragons. I'm Richard, famous for winning at go-karting.
And I am Carl, famous for winning at Mario Kart.
Touché. And on our show, remember, anything we say is meant to be satire. Please, please do not actually go get a Carl tattoo, no matter how much that would fill us with joy. Unless you want to.
Well, I mean, what's new with me and what's new with you, that's not satire. That's just anecdotes from our daily lives.
No, it's satire. Especially when you actively see a crime and put it into your what's new with me. It's definitely satire, probably scripted. Or else, like, it could just be like a list of testimony, which is probably unwise. So, now that this disclaimer's been given, what's new in the Carlverse, I ask hesitatingly.
Okay, well, so, last winter.
That's not new with you, like, by definition, but, okay, let's see where you're going. I'll follow the pipeline.
Yeah, so,
last winter you played with my heart? Like...
No, I was trying to shovel my sidewalk. And, the sidewalk got noticeably more narrow closer to the house, to the point where it was more narrow than the shovel.
Oh.
Which is problematic, because then you can't really shovel because you're trying to like shovel dirt, and it was a big hassle.
So moments like this, I wish we had an editor with little talking Carl and Richard like chibis, so someone could just put a thought bubble next to me and be like, I have no idea where he's going with this, because saying it's less fun than if it was animated.
But so the snow melted because it is springtime here in Saskatchewan.
Did it?
Well, I mean, Saskatchewan has 2 seasons, and those are winter and construction. So it's currently construction season.
For context, I made a joke at my last D&D game that's like I've finally been in Ontario long enough to have thoughts about damp cold versus dry cold, because damp cold's not a real thing, and you're all just a bunch of wimps. But now I've gotten soft.
Anyways, so the snow melted, and what it revealed is that the grass from on the other side of my walkway had started to overgrow onto the sidewalk.
Yes.
It was like,
if only it was a parking lot, you wouldn't have had this problem.
It was like a good 3 or 4 inches overgrown onto the sidewalk as it got closer to the house. But so I decided that I would deal with this, that I'd be able to shovel the walk when the winter returns, because it will return.
I'm surprised it's not already there.
I mean, it's getting close. Actually, it's raining today, so...
It can't rain there.
That's good.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Anyways, but so... I have to get rid of all this dirt that's overgrown onto the sidewalk, and so I was like, "Hey, Dad, I need a weed whacker." And he's like, "Yeah, and you also have this edger," and I was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna borrow the edger too, for edging your lawn." Mm-hmm. I mean, there's dirty contexts, but that's not what we're going with here.
Let me just remove that.
Anyways, but the problem with the electric edger, I'm like, maybe it's a problem with me, maybe I just don't know how to use it, but the ground isn't level, and I don't know where the edge of the sidewalk is, and so I was trying to edge the sidewalk, but like sparks were flying, chunks were flying. It's like, man, I'm just gonna like ruin this edger and the sidewalk if I try and use the electric one. So I had to go buy a manual edger, which is basically just like a semicircle on the end of a stick.
I see.
And you just ram it into the ground at the edge of your sidewalk, and then it cuts the dirt, and you just pick it up and throw it in the compost.
I don't know why my first thought when you said that was weed whacker with intensity.
Well, I mean, maybe it could work. I don't know. That would be an interesting... no, that would probably just make a mess. It would just send everything flying everywhere. In any event, based on my experience, using a manual edger is more time consuming, but if you don't know what you're doing, it actually works better. But the actual point of the story is that the next day, I realized that I don't do enough manual labor because I don't have any calluses on my hands, so my hands were sore. And like that's the entire point of the story.
Is your hands are sore because you have white collar hands because you spent too much time being a corporate spy, not enough time hitting the iron?
Something like that. It's like when you go to like a playground and you swing on monkey bars, and then if you don't have calluses, well, maybe I just have soft palms. I don't know how you deal with monkey bars, but the act of swinging actively irritates my hands because I don't have calluses from going outside. I guess
there could be one other factor here.
Hmm?
Did you know that you're in your 30s?
Well, I did not know that. I thought I was born before Tiddlywinks came out because they were popular.
It's a good point.
Back
You
in
could
the
just
day.
be in your 1930s. It's like, oh, one of my hands are weak from physical labor and callus. I'm like, that, or you've hit your quarter life crisis.
Oh no! It was definitely if I had calluses, then my hand it was very specifically right where my on my palms, right where my hands connect to my fingers, where you do that. Like you say with monkey bars, when you swing on a monkey bar, the part where you grip right where your fingers meet your hand. I've actually always had a problem with that part of my hand getting irritated by hanging off things or grabbing things like handles.
That is hilarious, and I enjoy that. That's the What's New of You segment. Is you got defeated by garden tools and monkey bars.
No, I defeated the garden tools. The sidewalk is beautifully edged. Now when
was that
when
Samson who was too strong for
off,
tools? Because I feel like that's the energy you're giving. Beowulf. You're like, yeah, I'm just too strong for tools. Weapons just break. It's a problem.
Well, all I'm saying is that I defeated the sidewalk overgrown grass.
Oh,
and my hands are no longer sore
2.
because I haven't done any manual labor in a couple days.
Congratulations, you've hit level 2. The least interesting level up for the vast majority of classes.
So, what's new with you there, Richard?
Homework. Let's see.
That doesn't sound new.
Well, I'm volunteering for convocation, and I'm writing assignments, working on my masterwork project. But
volunteering for convocation? What does that entail?
Mostly handing out the short story compilation written by the year above me. And greeting people when they come through the door and building flower arrangements.
Like Lego flower arrangements or actual flower arrangements?
Halfway between plastic flowers, plastic containers, but arranging them.
Yeah, okay. I mean, the Lego ones are cooler, but whatever, teach their own.
We have a budget crisis on colleges across North America. The Lego flower option is just no longer viable. That is the only reason, I'm sure.
Yeah, budget crisis, because we were...
Well, it's funny because you're talking yard work, and ironically, I ended up going to my weekend D&D group a couple hours early to help a friend of mine with some yard work, i.e., hey, they'll give me treats if I mow the lawn.
Mm-hmm.
Because much like the common corgi, despite wanting to be a cat person, I may in fact be a dog. So, happily, I go to do yard work and got rained out and just kind of thoroughly defeated. So instead we went to Costco, and then for $5 I have a 24-pack of green tea.
Yeah, Costco is amazing.
I did a lot of psychic damage, because we had one for bubble tea recently, and it was like $6 each, right? And then we get this flat of green tea, and I point out that this flat of tea costs me less than your singular beverage. And it was like, I think it was a 48-pack of like 555 milliliter bottles. Like, it was a lot. And I'm just like, yeah, just sorry for doing the spiritual damage. They may never recover from that realization that single cup beverage was the price of the flat of the same beverage. But that's what's new with me is D&D, yard work, and so I've been running Tomb of Annihilation and running like a traditional hex crawl campaign.
Okay.
And I'm actually using random encounter tables, but my big twist is that I try and turn all of them into roleplay optional encounters.
Yeah, okay.
But the players put themselves in a situation where like, ooh, we're going to cleverly evade everything. And I'm like, a bunch of winged pterodactyl men attack you. Can we clever? Like, nope, they fly at you. They hate you. They're not good people. You see their flaying equipment on their side. One of them is wearing a human intestine as a necklace. Can we parlay with them? Nope. Can I intimidate them? Probably not.
Yeah, I mean, like they sound pretty intimidating themselves.
So that was amazing. It was just a good old-fashioned, long D&D session. And like I said, what's new with me isn't so much interesting news as last week was really intense, and this week was like very chill, and it was a nice balance.
Well, I mean, it's good to have a balance in your life. If you're working too much, then you don't really have time to enjoy life. But if you spend too much time enjoying life, then you'll become sad that you're not accomplishing anything.
Pretty much. I mean, I'm turning a barbecue chicken into chili. That's something.
Chicken chili?
Chicken chili is a solid option. Chicken bacon chili. So instead of ground beef, I'm going what's left of the barbecue chicken and some nice crispy bacons.
That does sound pretty legit.
And with that out of the way, let's in record time move to our topic, which is funny because we don't have a particular. This is like our most vapid topic we've had, and we have like the most time to tackle it because we're talking mobile games. The thing that's
yeah.
So I'm gonna start with what's number 20 on this arbitrary list that I played a ton of and was worth every penny because of their innovative strategy.
Yeah, well, the list isn't entirely arbitrary. Android Authority is quite clearly the authority on Android devices. And so if they're talking about the best free Android games, which I looked up because I have an Android device, and I was going to make a bold statement.
Are they actually the authority? I kind of want to call shenanigans because there's nothing stopping me from making a web domain and paying the $50 to be Anime Authority or Pizza Authority. Also, how dope is Pizza Authority for a franchise name?
Pizza Authority. We're the authority on pizza.
Right? And then you like make your cars similar enough to cop cars that people are not sure if it's a bit or not, so that way you can do more crime in them to get the pizzas faster to people.
Anyways, I don't know. I assume that Android Authority is
I know nothing about them,
adequately named.
But I gave a full rant in class today that people are so interconnected now that if you click like on a pizza place, you may inadvertently fund an anti-abortion bill.
Oh.
Well, it's true. Like, some pizza places will have political stance and make donations to mutual funds that are then used for political parties. My point being that I don't know if Android Authority is good or bad, nor does it matter for the rest of this conversation. Because I want to shout out game number 20 on this semi-arbitrary list. I'm going to still state it. Vampire Survivors. Have you played Vampire Survivors?
I have not. But it's one of those ones where you're like in the middle and surrounded by hordes of zombies and try and, well, they're vampires, I guess.
So it's a bullet hell kind of game where like enemies die, you walk around, it attacks automatically based on the weapon pattern, you pick up gems and level up. But they had this super innovative marketing strategy that made me love their product and their company.
Ah.
The game cost, at the time I bought it, $1.
Oh.
You just get the game. There was no DLC, no microtransactions, no pop-ups, no ads, nothing. $1 was this full-length game that kept getting updates. Eventually they had to raise the price because Steam was dinging them and they weren't actually even making their dollar. So I think it's like $4 now. And it has DLC now for like $5 for like that doubles the size of your game. But I have sunk in an impressive amount of hours. And it was back when I was doing remote classes that I'd just be playing that on the side screen to keep my ADHD focused. Yeah, my Vampire Survivors on PC is up to 200 hours playtime. And they added local co-op to it as well. And they have their newest expansion as a Contra crossover somehow.
Well, apparently, it's a free game on Android.
Oh, on Android they do have... I will be clear, if you don't spend your like $4 and get the free version, when you die, you can pay watch an advertisement play to get back up once.
Huh.
And it's just like, yeah, no, they're like, oh, we made our game and it did well and we're happy. I'm like, oh, this seems to be mostly bullshit free. That's all it had to do is be bullshit free and I'm happy. It's such an innovative tactic I just don't see in mobile games. But I do find the novelty be funny, the idea that I'm playing a game that has, like, you just use your finger to drag your character and there's no button presses. Which I really like that in a phone game, when it doesn't expect me to use coordination on what's the worst controller ever developed, other than the Nintendo 64.
The Nintendo 64.
But to segue, since that's my experience of Vampire Survivor, what on this list is something you have an expertise on? Because it's probably not Genshin Impact, which I will rant about soon.
Well, see, the funny thing is, when I said I wanted to talk about mobile games, it was because the advertisements for mobile games, the mobile games that have advertisements that I've seen.
Oh, are we talking those fake advertisements where you're like, this is clearly not even a real game? Or it's like somehow it's a cutscene of a bad game, and then you'll try the game and it's like worse than the cutscene somehow, and the cutscene wasn't even for a good game. It'll be like, save the princess by dragging the swords, and that's not even the game it leads you to. It'll just lead you to Raid Shadow Legends.
Okay, well, so like there's one game I downloaded, and there is an actual full game. It's like called Save the Dog, and it's a little dog, a little dog face.
Yeah.
And then there's beehives on the screen, and then you have X amount of time to draw a shape around the dog to protect him from the bees.
I have seen that advertisement, yes. Right. I did not believe it was real.
There is actually a full game that is just that, somehow. I do not see the potential to make a whole game out of that, but somehow there is a full game out of that.
I mean, I'm going to counterpoint with the dumbest mobile game I've played, that I played way too much of. So you know the one with the vials, where you have to like pour the vials into the other vials in the right order to make all the vials the same color of liquid? And that's the entire mechanic. It's like a super basic puzzle. Too many hours got spent on that for me on transit. I don't know what about that specific kind of puzzle was soothing, but I remember getting so angry because it's like, you played one stage. Here's a 2-minute advertisement. I'm like, your game does not justify a price. I should just make one myself. Program some kind of algorithm to randomly make me a solvable spelling puzzle and just make it. Like, I don't know, maybe put up some ads on Fiverr. This should definitely be doable.
The reason I bring up the Save the Dog game is because I don't know if they're using open source sprites or something.
Probably.
But
I would be.
The advertisement for the game that I actually downloaded, that the saving the dog part was maybe 5% of probably not even 5% of the actual game, and the rest of the game was just, I don't even remember. It was so generic, just anime art style, dark and gritty, and like I was just like, man, what even is this? I just wanted to save the dog. How did I click on the ad to save the dog and I can't? And then I try and find that game with the save the dog thing again. It's like, oh, there actually is just a full game with that exact sprite, but it was not that advertisement that I clicked on.
See, that's super funny because I immediately think of like Wartune and things where it's like, even if it was the thing they were advertising, the thing they were advertising isn't even good. It's like, hey, look at this awesome edgy thing. It's just like, you're not even like, just sell us the garbage. We were willing to give the garbage a chance, but it's like we went to get a cheesy cheeseburger expecting the stomach ache, and then you put in it, give us a cheesy cheeseburger. What, is the cheesy cheeseburger too valuable for this corporation?
Well, but then when you play the free mobile games, then you get advertisements, similar advertisements Like there's the one. There's a variety of different styles, but there's the one where it's like you pull the sticks out and like you have to drop water onto lava to be able to make the pathway to.
If someone actually made that game for real, like made it full of actual puzzles, it could be interesting.
Well, yeah, it could be interesting, but again, any time I've been taunted by that ad and I've actually decided, like, maybe I'll check it out. That portion, the ads are never false. That is somewhere in the game. But it's like
somehow not the game. Like you'll give you an advertisement for just like a straight up rope topography puzzle, and then not give you a rope topography puzzle game because it'll somehow be like Mafia Wars, where you have to keep clicking buttons to upgrade things, to idle clicker things, to play your rope puzzle.
Okay, so then there was another one, Hero Wars. I remember this one because the advertisement, it really intrigued me. I can see a lot of potential in the game design of the advertisement.
So I need to pause for a moment for a mini side tangent. On an episode of Community, there was a person who went around trying to like grassroots market sell cars to people. And then they ran to the dean, who would instantly buy anything the person was selling, and they're like, he's a level 7 susceptible. And I'm just like, Carl looks at phone, want to try this game? I do. I'm like, he's a level 7 susceptible.
Well, I mean, free is the best price.
No, plus, firmly disagree.
On my vacation, specifically on the airplane when I didn't have Wi-Fi because I wasn't going to pay for Wi-Fi on a 2-hour flight.
That's fair. You think being closer to the satellite would make the Wi-Fi cheaper, but no.
I realized I don't have I don't generally have games on my phone anyway, but without internet connection, my phone was useless as an entertainment device.
It just became a brick?
I mean, basically, it just sat in the pocket in my seat on the airplane. But so then I was been looking at games as like I said, the last one I downloaded was called Hero Wars. And the advertisement, it always starts with this hero, and he faces up against a monster, and then somehow he loses all of his power, and he's down to level 1. And then he falls into a dungeon, and it's like you pick up a sword, so now you're level 2, and then you find a guy that's level 1, and then he adds his level to you. And he goes around clicking on guys that are lower level than him to add their level. And then for some reason, they always have him click on someone who's obviously higher level than him, and he just dies.
Oh, I know why. So here's a psychological method they use to advertise these games. This is actually fun. Mm-hmm. So did you know a human being is most likely to want to help somebody? Humans are actually less vindictive than you think. If they see someone struggling on a puzzle they can solve, they have an instinct, a literal instinct to fix it. So if you see someone lose at a winnable game, it'll bug you, and that'll actually have more people download the game than if you see someone win at the game, because you know you could just fix it. Nintendo's never bothered this marketing, but like legitimately, if you just saw someone doing a Pokemon battle and just clicking the wrong attacks repeatedly, you'd be compelled to download it and do it right.
That is interesting.
I mean, it worked.
I was actually compelled to download this game because I'd like say I can see a huge amount of potential. It's because like when you're exploring this dungeon, you can see the level you need to get to. But I mean, there aren't that many mechanics actually described in the.
Although I find it funny you sent me a list and don't want to talk about anything on it. That's just hilarious.
Well, I do want to talk about one game on it, which is the number 1, which is Altos Odyssey, because I downloaded it after realizing that none of the games that I had currently downloaded were on the list of best free games.
Because you click Instagram Reel games. So it's funny because like anyway. I've also played some bad things, but one of the games here's a really funny one because it wasn't the game's fault that I quit it. Mm-hmm. So they made a game called Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links. And what they did is they reduced the number of life points, reduced the number of character slots, and started from the very start of Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards.
Right.
You could manually battle people, or you could click the auto battle button so you could like build a deck to auto battle. And then they put in the show characters and gave each one of them like a power. So it's like if you had Weevil, it'd power up your bug guys, which meant building a bug deck had a point to it. So it's kind of like Yu-Gi-Oh! Commander almost.
Yeah, okay.
I stopped playing it when the game made it to Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds and they started adding in cards from there. And I'm like, I don't like these synchrosummic mechanics because they make each turn take longer and the game feels like it's wasting my time. So ironically, I quit Duel Links around the time they got to the cards where I quit original Yu-Gi-Oh! Because the game became too long of combo-driven turns because it didn't believe in rotating things out.
Right.
It's like, no, this game was pretty much like the perfect version of Yu-Gi-Oh! For an app. You could buy packs, you could just fight missions, grind things. When you beat AIs, they drop their signature cards. But they ruined it by going into 5D. And Card Games on Motorcycle just isn't a fun game. I'm not even dunking on the show. It's just like the mechanics weren't as fun because too much sacrifice this, search for this, pull out this happened. You just kind of remember playing Magic against Jeremy and you just kind of have to sit there for 5 minutes while he took his turn. And it wasn't that he was slow play. You just had that many things to do somehow.
Yeah. Just had too many things to do.
So that's my mini rant about Yu-Gi-Oh! But back to this game you're about to talk about.
Well, I mean, I'm still dancing around the list because, like.
So on this list, then, you should probably just actually download and play Honkai Star Rail because it made more money than Sony. This year, that one game from Hoyoverse made more money than Sony, the company.
Huh.
It's pretty good. I don't think it tells me how many hours I put into it because I play it on my computer and my phone. It's probably good that I don't know. Because they're like, oh yeah, we're just going to do like a full-on sci-fi JRPG with a slot machine to get your characters. And like, fuck you. Damn it, this is well written and I'm mad.
Yeah, okay, that's the one that you said that actually had a decent, like, compelling story.
Yeah, like they added a new planet where you're like in a dream hotel. And it's like, they just try way harder than any other mobile game I played. Like, imagine you're playing your Final Fantasy game and then it busts into a mini game where you're filming a film reel and you're a gangster mouse on a rail shooting bullets at other gangster mice to earn tokens to try and unlock another character for your JRPG. Like, there's a bit where you just run around as a gangster puppet for some reason. And I'm like, that was a mechanic you used like twice that took like God knows how much effort to make. So yeah, like, even though its entire monetization model of, hey, if you really want this one character, you can give us money. You don't actually need any of them to play it at all, and it's a one-player game, so you're not really competing against people. You can borrow other people's characters for certain modes, but like, yeah. Anyway, so Honkai Star Rail I like way more than their other one they have, Genshin Impact, which is just Zelda Breath of the Wild, but with a slot machine for your characters.
See, I thought I never really bothered with the anime style games because I thought they were just like sex sells.
No. Although I will say, so I'm not going to give them a complete free pass, but the Hoyoverse ones aren't egregious for that. They're mostly, I don't know, it does lean to there being slightly more female characters than male characters, but the newest character they added is a robot cowboy with shark teeth who has a filter that makes him say fudging instead of the F-bomb. And it's a physical filter they installed in his robot body, and he's angry about it. And he's just a straight-up cowboy bounty hunter robot with a gun arm. So I'm like, it's not just sex sells for those ones. However, I'd get a lot of advertisements for sex sells games.
Well, so like one of the advertisements that I saw, I think they're for the same game.
Probably.
The first one, the normal one, there's a bunch of sticks and they're screwed to a wall, and you're supposed to move the screws to an open screw hole to have all the sticks fall off the wall.
Yeah.
And I mean, it doesn't really seem like a very complex puzzle. But then, like I say, I'm pretty sure it's the same game, but the sticks are covering some sort of sexy warrior.
I can safely say I don't have that downloaded.
Well, I mean, I don't have that downloaded either because I was just like, that's sex doesn't sell to me.
It's
Like,
separation of church and state, right? Like, go read a book. My legitimate advice to people, like, I find that so off-putting to be playing a video game and it just being like, do you want this PG-18 scene? And I'm like, no. I also get mad at TV shows for that too, where I'll just yell out, damn it, Game of Thrones, you could have just faded to black. I'm trying to watch my show. Okay, thanks. Also,
you would much rather have the sex scenes replaced by CGI dragons.
That is amazing editing. I stand by that. They were giving an impossible task and they nailed it. Or didn't nail it, solving their objective. Oh, man.
Okay, but the Hero Wars game, I downloaded it because I see a lot of potential in that style of game, and that just isn't what the game is.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, well, I haven't found it yet, and it's like you're trying to collect heroes to like do an auto fighting against enemies and stuff. And it's like, where's this portion of the game? They even had a section where it was that stupid key puzzle. It was like, yeah, there's this little mini dungeon where you do a stupid key puzzle. I'm like, what? What happened to the part that I actually clicked on the advertisement for?
Yeah, that's the worst. Like, there's one I clicked on a while back that was stupid. That was like, you're an assassin, and you only have one bullet, and you have to, like, angle your gun and just fire your one bullet to kill all your targets as it just bounced off walls. And I'm like, this is definitely something someone can make as a grad project in college pretty easily.
Mm-hmm,
and then started, like, having base building and timers and crystals and 3 currencies. I'm like, I just wanted to Sakamoto days this. Why are you doing this to me?
The other thing about the free games, though, and this happened in that mech battle game that we were playing for a while.
Oh, the Super Mecha Champions, I think it was?
Yeah.
I still... that game annoys me because it's so cool in concept and so bad. I've never more in my life wanted to be like, hey, can I buy your game and fix it? And just gut the, like, nonsense monetization features and just play the game. It's like, you guys have spent so much time making skins. Maybe be like a second map.
But the free games in general, but this is also really bad on mobile games, especially because the screen is so much smaller, and it's just filled like when you're on like the home screen for your game, and it's just filled with different icons, and each one has a notification badge.
Yep.
Because there's a separate icon for your daily challenge. There's a second icon for your sign-in challenge. There's a second icon for your season challenge, for your weekly challenge.
So how much do you think like a developer pays a shop for one of those prefab, looks like Overwatch 2 marketplace interfaces you see on literally every game? Like, I hope someone just made that and just outsells that to people, just the menu screens.
And it's just kind of ridiculous because it's like the special events will have their own little icon with the notification badge, and you're just like lost in these notification badges trying to find out what you need to do to get rid of them because they annoy me so much.
Yeah, that's fair. Like, Star Rail's not too bad for that, although it does have a feature where a random party member will text you when you turn on the game for a random side conversation. It's one of my favorite parts of the game, because one of the characters was literally...
actually send you a text?
Huh? It's in-game, so it's not like on your actual phone. It's like in your in-game cell phone.
Oh, okay.
So on your in-game cell phone, you'll get something like, oh, what was it today? It was, hey, did you download that new gacha game? I know you're not really into those, but I have a friend code and I get points for it. I'm like, that meta joke is hilarious. Or there was another one where it's like, oops, sorry, I just sent you a receipt by accident. Don't worry about the account number. I'm really not that rich. Okay, I'm rich.
Okay, what do you think about Pokemon Go? Because that's still pretty high up on your...
I was going to move on the list too. So, Pokemon Go is a weird one. So, as I mentioned before, I don't actually like gesture controls on phone games. So I didn't enjoy flicking Pokeballs at things or tapping Pokemon to battle or just playing a worse version of Pokemon.
Right.
But I like going for walks. But also, I
Mm.
don't know if this is like a meta Richard problem or not, but I knew from day one it's like, okay, if they're going to add like 900 Pokemon, I'm never going to have a complete collection on this thing. And they, even though it's like, wait, can I use the Pokebank to Bing my Pokemon Go things? Sometimes there's like things you can get from Go into the real games, but I'm like, this is weird because I can be entertained enough on the walk with my thoughts or my friends. So I literally only played Pokemon Go to give gifts to my friends because it would make them go on walks with me. It's like conceptually I should love it, but it doesn't engage my brain nearly enough to hold my interest and doesn't really fill the niche it does for a lot of other people. And I've heard people be like, oh, I'll just go on slow moving streetcars to catch Pokemon because it moves at a good speed for it. And I'll be like, what? What's the end game? Because I play games to either get a story from them or to beat Carl at them. So, like, a lot of these, like, cozy life sim solo games, if I don't have someone to show off my Pal World base to, I'll get bored of Pal World kind of thing. Like, I don't get satisfaction from busy work, I guess is how it goes. So I need a game that's, like, story engaging or conversation starty engaging. So if Pokemon Go was just Pokemon Yellow, but you could battle people within phone range, and I could just go on a bus and see like who wants to Pokemon battle, and it lit up everyone else that was nearby, like X and Y kind of did, and then they stopped doing that because Nintendo's special.
Pokemon games.
X and Y has a bit of a bad rep, but its online features actually just worked. They just showed you who was online. You could click on them, give them boosts, or trade with them, or battle them. Like, it just had actual friend connectivity, and they forgot how to do that.
Wait. Yeah, so why do you say X and Y has a bad rap then?
Oh, just a lot of people in the various Pokemon communities, no one has ever listed X and Y as their favorite Pokemon game. Except for, I think it was actually my favorite Pokemon game. And they have, like, some valid criticisms, like, it's one of the easier Pokemon games, which is a weird criticism to make with Pokemon, even though it's true. And it's, like, had some uneven pacing. It was weird that most of the Mega Evolutions were just rocks at places. It didn't really have a good post-game. Like, people made some decent arguments for it, but I really liked it. But I don't want them to make a remake of it because there's so much room for improvement that you could make a really good game based off of it. Which is why the new Legends game taking place in that region could actually be really cool for me.
Fair enough.
But I digress. That is my thoughts on Pokemon Go, is that I'd rather it just... So, I'm going to side tangent a bit. A friend of mine recently acquired an Analog Pocket, which is effectively a Game Boy emulator that can play actual Game Boy Advance games, where you can put in your SD card for your backup files of games you've legally obtained.
Okay.
And it just has nice clicky buttons. It's like a metal casing, and I'm like, this is just a good quality Game Boy. And I thought to myself, I don't play Nintendo Switch on the bus. Not because I'm afraid of breaking my Nintendo Switch or but because the games aren't optimized to be played on a moving bus.
Right.
You're not playing Mario Kart successfully on a moving bus on a Nintendo Switch. It's a large screen. Like, your wrist will get sore. Like, it's designed to be played when you're, like, laying nearly vertically or on a TV.
Right.
A lot of Game Boy Advance and DS games and Game Boy Color games were literally deliberately designed to be played in short bursts that save frequently, that require busable levels of dexterity. Like, you're not going to be successfully doing Street Fighter, but you're probably able to jump and pick up mushrooms on the transit.
Right.
So where I'm going with this is that part of me is like, oh man, should I just get a Game Boy and just go through the Pokemon series on my commute rather than these phone mobile games that have awkward controls unless they're like straight up turn-based? And aren't... It's like they're not optimizing the game for the device the game is on. So, to rant about Genshin Impact a bit, it has all the Breath of the Wild mechanics, from cooking to climbing to using your ice magic to freeze the water to run across it. Like, it is a free cost AAA game that inexplicably can run on a cell phone.
Okay.
It's an amazing technological feat. Like comparing that to literally move the strings off the board to get the adult anime girl photo game is the same cost as an actual functional Breath of the Wild on your phone is actually an absurd concept to think about.
Mm-hmm.
Like Honkai Star Rail's on its third year, and it's literally just, you put a game that's probably equal in quality to Final Fantasy X for free on a phone, because enough people will spin the slot machine to try and get the pop star who got shot in the throat and has a voice amplifier who uses the power of song to let you take multiple turns. That you can subsidize everyone who doesn't pay for it by the 4 people who get obsessed with it.
Right.
And I'm just like, a lot of these phone games that expect me to have controls and use them, and not just because of my disability, but also probably because of my disability. Turns out that may matter. Might be a factor here. I'm like, I'm not playing Call of Duty on a cell phone. I'm not playing an EA Sports game on a cell phone. I'm not playing League of Legends on a cell phone.
I do find it funny that, like, how would Call of Duty Mobile even work?
One thumbstick to move around, another one to shoot and look around.
I mean, I guess if you get one of those super cool gaming phones that have like air triggers and like there's some pretty cool gaming phones that are practically like a Nintendo Switch in a phone.
But it's kind of funny, like in their effort to make these handhelds better, they're becoming less practical at being handhelds. Like I look at the Steam Deck and I'm like, yeah, that's a laptop you hold with the processing power of a laptop. I think it's going to be less effective at being a Game Boy than a Game Boy.
And apparently, if they can just create AAA games for free on mobile phones. But I assume you're going in the direction of having poor controls with Genshin Impact?
So Genshin Impact, I can't play on the phone. I play with an Xbox controller on my computer.
Yeah.
However, that could just be a me problem. But because Star Rail's a turn-based game where I'm using like one analog stick to move around, the other one to like open boxes and things, and then the actual fights are, well, they're semi-turn based. I can successfully do that on transit, which is why I've played so much of it. Another thing that's weird is they have a lot of card games on here, like Marvel Snap and Runeterra and this and that. The problem with card games on a phone is matches have a set amount of time and commutes don't. And they want you to play. A lot of these games have completely. Card games have thrown out single player modes completely.
Right.
And that's what I would play on a bus. And it kind of bugs me personally. Is I don't want to play a phone game against other human beings. Because on one hand, they'll play more than me and beat me. And the other hand, you can't just pause it and stop. You just have to lose a match and go further down on a ladder.
Right.
Like, I played Marvel Snap for a while, and I'm just like... Card games are already predatory by nature, having to grind for booster packs, and the person with better cards will probably beat you. But also, they've, like, gotten rid of most single-player content. And it's a weird thing to say, but I'd prefer a single-player card game, like Pokemon cards for the Game Boy Color, where you actually went around and fought the gym leaders to get more cards. Because I like card games, but I don't like human beings on my cell phone morning commute.
Marvel Snap, you said, actually was mechanically pretty interesting, though, right?
It was. That's why I played it for as long as I did. But first it got really stale after a while, like most card games do when they don't have card rotations, where people start to settle on their decks. And I ran into that problem of people who played it every day just had better cards than me.
Right.
Like, I was like... You know when you get high enough mythic ranked in one of those card games and they give you a number to know, like, actually how good you are?
Right.
So I got, like, pretty top tier in that game. But I got bored because these digital card games are so, and I'm going to use our F-bomb here, fucking cheap for no reason. They'll be like, want to play virtual Magic cards? Packs cost the same. They'll be like, oh, you want to play Marvel Snap, do you? $20 a trading card. I'll be like, what are you on? You're a free game. They just gave me a free Zelda Breath of the Hoyoverse out here handing out Breath of the Wild, and you won't give out trading cards? Pieces of cardboard for free? Are you insane?
But you can't even trade them for free.
They removed trading from all these games Because you would buy less,
Yeah.
so instead they'll just occasionally give you wild cards for too many doubles. It's insane! I hate it so much! Like, can I just defeat the entire cell phone card economy by making a game where you get all the cards by playing the game? You just unlock them from doing quests and missions and things, and then you can trade them with people? Do I just defeat them that way? But my card game is free, and you don't have to buy the booster packs? Like, you know how like Kirby Air Ride had that awesome achievement grid?
Right.
How sick would that be as a way to unlock cards? Like for example, to use like a Yu-Gi-Oh! Magic example, what if you unlocked Eldrazi's by doing things like win a game with enough Devoid lands, and like each Eldrazi you like played for quests would then unlock you more Eldrazi stuff? Like you unlock Emrakul by winning a game with 20 mana untapped. So you have to like literally with your starter deck try to have enough mana in play to then unlock it from the achievements. Like that's how I'd go about it, is making a card game video game that actually cares about being a video game. I blame Hearthstone.
The number one game on the best free Android games on Android Authority is Alto's Odyssey.
Yes, so please tell me what this is. I've never heard of this thing in my life.
I've never heard of it either before seeing this list, but I was like, okay, I'll give it a try because it's number one.
Aren't those mint people things old people like?
No.
Oh, those are Altoids. Please continue.
Well, okay, have you ever played or seen Hill Climb Racing?
Yes.
Okay. So basically, it's kind of like that, where it's a procedurally generated side-scrolling map, and your goal is to just get as far as you can, except for you're like on a surfboard riding through the desert, and you're like going down hills in the desert, trying to do stunts to build up speed, and it's pretty cool because there's no ads while you're actually doing your run. There's occasionally no ads at the end of your run too, but most of the time there's ads after you do a run. But like,
that's fine.
I don't know. It's as far as mobile games go, like you were saying with card games, where your match either has a set amount of time or doesn't, but it can go it'll go for too long and make it not very good for actually doing on transit. Where something like Alto's Odyssey, where it's like,
I like how I say with transit, like we're not playing our phone games on the toilet.
Well, I mean, that's true, but a lot of people do play mobile games in their own home when they could be using a PC or a
there's a
gaming
certain
console
amount of
instead.
like, first there's energy bandwidth, and then there's amount of time I have fallacy. So I had a conversation with a friend of mine right before our meeting, actually.
Mm-hmm.
So I got this cool new computer game called Until the Dawn, where you're playing as a Fox journalistic reporter who was thrown in jail by a corrupt mayor, and you're trying to find evidence to prove that they're a criminal while escaping prison. And if you don't escape prison in time, you get shot in the face.
Wow.
So it's a really interesting narrative game. Like, it has turn-based combat for like, literally, I paid $50 to get a toothbrush in prison and then tape some glass to it as a shiv. So when the crocodile guy tries to jump me for my money, I can shiv him. And then it breaks into like, kind of like For the King combat, actually.
Okay.
So it's a really cool indie game, exactly up my alley, where like each of these prisoners has a big emotional story, yada, yada, yada. So my friend's like, hey, have you tried any more runs? Because when you get game over, it gives you a new game plus where you get to keep like your skills you unlocked. So that way you have like more powers to break out of prison.
Right.
It's almost like not quite like a roguelike, but it's designed to give you game overs, but you'll have better stats going into the next run.
Mm-hmm.
And my friend's like, oh, did you play this at all today? I'm like, well, I had a meeting with Carl at 9:30, which means I didn't, my brain's like, oh, between 7 and 9:30, I can't do anything serious. I'm not going to boot up an actual video game. So guess what I did while waiting for you? played crappy
mobile
Dragon Ball
games?
Super cards. I could have played a good
on your phone.
On my computer because it's not on my phone. But my logic is a lot of times people will play these mobile games or phone games because they don't want to commit themselves to a good game when they don't think they have the time to enjoy it. Breath of the Wild was the weirdest one for me for that. Like, I need to make sure I had, like, booked out a chunk of my calendar to play Breath of the Wild, so I just play bad games instead. Because I'm like, oh, I'm not going to bust out Armored Core because I want to enjoy Armored Core. So instead, I guess I'll play Honkai Star Rail while sitting on the couch watching Prison Break or something. I honestly think a lot of people probably play phone games while a show that's somewhat okay is going.
Well, so Alto's Odyssey, I don't know if it deserves to be number one because, like, you can jump, and then if you hold jump, you do a backflip.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like the controls are extremely simple, very easy to pick up, but it's not really complex at all. There's no story. It's just like, see how far you can go, see what kind of new biomes you can discover if you can get far enough, or what kind of stuff you can unlock from the shop because you collect coins every time you do a run there. And then there's some stuff in the shop that is like, oh, you can buy this thing for real money.
Well, it's kind of funny, like, looking at this list. So, Tower of Fantasy is another game I played on PC, which is just, it was just sci-fi Genshin Impact. It was just Genshin Impact, but sci-fi.
Okay.
Well, actually, no, it was Genshin Impact, but Xenoblade Chronicles. But not Xenoblade Chronicles X, because that was too cool for them, and no one's on that level yet. Because, like, Xenoblade's like, oh, I'm British, and everyone's 12, and I have a anime girl, turns into a sword, and I'm like, yeah, okay. And then Xenoblade Chronicles X, like, you have a mech suit and you're in volcanic acid fighting a T-Rex. I'm like, wow, why is this so much cooler? And why does no one know this game exists?
Well, because it came out for the Wii U, and everyone thought that was just another Wii.
It was just the universe balancing, right? Like, best game I played on the worst system makes sense. That's just karma.
Just karma.
But yeah, that's my big rant on mobile games, is I definitely prefer story-driven games that are strategic enough. Like, I would love it, because so they love to put mobile bullshit in mobile games, right? Like, Fire Emblem Heroes is a terrible game.
Right.
Because they stripped all the strategy, plot, story, and joy out of Fire Emblem and made it a waifu collector. Or a husbando collector.
Right.
Fire Emblem probably actually has more men. It might be a husbando collector.
Okay.
And I'm like, can you just, like, instead of that, take those old Fire Emblems, right? But instead of having to use a virtual A button, B button, and D-pad like an emulator, make them work with touch controls and call it no? Okay. It's like how Mario Run, I'm like, wait, so you made this instead of just making Super Mario World work on this phone. You know you own Super Mario World, right, Nintendo?
And, like, ROMs are so, like, modern games are huge, but even N64 ROMs are, like, tiny.
Well, also, though, like, my earlier rant of, a lot of games use those, like, simulated keyboard phone controls where, like, one thumb controls a thumbstick, and the other one's, like, sometimes buttons. And, like, I don't like that control setup at all. It's just gross.
Wait, yeah, what kind of phone controls do you like, then?
Designed for the phone, like, have buttons light up that I push. It's like, if you want me to use one stick for camera controls and the other one to move, that's already not an optimally designed mobile game for me. Like I said, I prefer mobile games that are Game Boy Advance, that I hold and it's just a Game Boy Advance.
Fair enough.
And I'm starting to think to myself, I probably should just find my Game Boy Advance and play that. Go through the entire library of, like, because they have a lot, like, oh, I'm pretty sure Game Boy, if you have, like, a DS, especially one that can play, like the one that had the slot for Game Boy Advance and Game Boy Classic in it, pretty sure that gives me, like, all the Final Fantasies, most of the Pokemon, and just a fine collection of games.
Yeah, I'm not sure you can actually play Game Boy Classic games on the DS. I don't remember, though.
I don't remember either. You're right, you probably couldn't. I know you can with one of those, like, analog pockets I was talking about, because future tech.
Future tech.
So, with that, any more mobile games you'd like to talk about? Because I mostly just angry ranted about controllers.
Well, I mean, mostly what else I would have to talk about is how many times have you seen a playable ad?
They seem to be increasing in commonality.
They certainly do, and it's like you have to sit there and wait for it to run out for like 30 seconds. That's the screw game I was talking about earlier, the non-sex sells one.
Yeah.
It had a little timer on the top, and I was like, okay, can I actually like solve this, get all these blocks to fall before the timer runs out? But even if the timer's only at halfway, after you get to a certain point in the puzzle, then it's like, oh, you actually played the puzzle? Well, then you got to download the game. And they stop letting you play the game.
So rude.
Even though the timer's... Yeah, it's so rude.
So I immediately turned on my Instagram to see if it advertised something at me. And want to know what just advertised to me, having spied on us this whole conversation?
What's that?
The new Neopets trading card game. And the thing is, I'm so offended that I'm probably the target audience for that. Like, if anyone, out of everyone we know, I'm probably the most likely person to buy a couple starter decks of the Neopets card game to try it.
That's super funny.
And I'm like, okay, algorithm, that was a good try. I'll give you the points you deserve here.
But there was another playable ad, and Whiteout Survival, I think is the name of the game.
Oh, I've seen that one.
Yeah, okay. Firstly, they have ads that don't reflect the playable ads. Like the playable ad is just completely different than the ad that they actually play. But secondly, I've actually seen two different playable ads for the same game, and it's like, which one's the actual game?
Which one's the real?
Or are neither of them the real game, and I'll download it, and it'll be something else altogether. Like, what the heck?
So I literally Googled playable ads, and then I got 3 companies there telling me that I can use them to easily make playable ads. And I'm like, oh, you didn't list playable ads for me. You just told me that you can turn our leading playable templates into your next successful brand experience. So I think a lot of them probably use this website's like playable ad template to then like edit the game into the thing they want to send people. Actually, how funny would it be if I made a Save the Heroes thing with sprites from characters from my book and it just led to a book? Continue it in your brain. Buy the Waltz of Blades now. Would be actually kind of a sick advertisement. I'm gonna be real. I don't think I'd sell a single book that way, but I know I'd anger a bunch of people. Like, I make my playable ad like a top-tier JRPG, epic music, like, oh, this is awesome. Finish the story here, and it's just a book.
That would be super, super funny.
All right. And with that, we move into our random question time. Which, because we have like ambient music, trying to do like the Who Wants to Be a Millionaire or the Weakest Link music is just not quite working for me.
Oh, I forgot about the Weakest Link.
Goodbye. Okay, our random question, I think, is targeted at you specifically. What is the most embarrassing thing you've ever said to a coworker or boss?
Most embarrassing thing I've ever said to a coworker or boss?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, so I was talking to one of my female coworkers.
Red flag.
And my mom and my sister. My sister had hosted. This is a sensitive topic, but my sister had hosted a sex toy party. And my mom and my brother's wife.
Oh no!
They tried tried edible underwear, like the eating it. They didn't actually try it on.
Why?
I assume. I don't really know. But so when I'm at work, I'm talking to a female coworker, and it was just topical in my mind. I asked them if they had ever tried edible underwear, and immediately they gave me a somewhat distressed look, and I was like, okay, I'm sorry, I apologize if that's too personal. You don't have to answer that if you don't want to. I was just curious, but if you don't want to answer this, but it's just like,
oops.
so often it's like I want to ask people questions that are like way too personal for work, and that one came pretty close to crossing the line. They actually did answer, and they had not tried edible underwear, but
I probably would have just been fired on the spot from a college job.
Probably.
Like, zero hesitation. Oh, wow.
Well, I mean, like, I guess it is sensitive, but at the same time, it's like...
It'd be so easy for someone to try and, like, spin that into, like, they were trying to proposition me. Oof.
Yeah, I suppose.
Like, I'm trying to think of the most embarrassing... See, the problem is, I don't have shame, right? So I've literally been to, like, coworkers be like, who wants to come over and play imaginary elves with me? Zero hesitation. In my scandalous youth, I've definitely asked out a coworker or two. And I've said some truly wake up in the middle of the night cringeworthy things to people. But at the time, they're never embarrassing to me because I'm neurodivergent, and it wouldn't occur to me to be embarrassed until someone explains what I did wrong. So... I honestly have no idea, but I'm sure people around me have lists.
Well, okay. Well, what's the most embarrassing thing? The most embarrassing thing that someone else told you was embarrassing that you remember?
Ugh. I honestly don't recall. I think I've spent too long as a student. I know I'm fumbling this answer, but I honestly cannot remember.
Well, I mean, I don't really know if necessarily I answered the question correctly either, because I wasn't necessarily embarrassed. It was just like, oh man, I didn't mean to make the other person feel awkward. I was just making conversation.
Oh, I got it. This one's pretty bad, even for me. So, I'm to a coworker who had a couple sick days. I'm like, oh, how are you feeling? Oh, much better. I'm like, oh, good. At least it wasn't cancer. It turned out it was.
Oof.
That would do it. That one was
rough.
repressed. At least you don't have cancer is not the right thing to say. They came to work the next day. I didn't know. Oops. So that would be it.
I shouldn't laugh because that is pretty genuinely horrible. But wow, yeah.
I mean, it was clearly worse for them.
Oh, I suppose so.
And one last question. What is the most ridiculous thing you've worn to work?
The most ridiculous thing I've worn to work?
I'll answer this one first. I mean, Halloween feels like it's cheating, but it doesn't undo the fact that I showed up in a full Akatsuki robe with Itachi Uchiha makeup, Sharingan, contact lenses, and a straw hat. That is objectively, even by Halloween standards, ridiculous. But in my defense, I was planning to go, take a bunch of coworkers with me to play Naruto Ninja Storm 2, I think, on an IMAX screen.
Well, I mean,
Or the time I wore sunglasses and cat ears and was a cool cat.
Well, I mean, I've generally just wear my work uniform to work.
So, as weird as this sounds, because when I get changed for work, when the times I'd show up in, a dress outfit, like what I normally wear now, when I worked at, the keg, and I'd, take off my kitchen uniform and, actually put on a tie, that baffled the heck out of people. Where I'm like, oh yeah, I have fancy plans afterward. They're like, what? How?
Well, okay, so, I mean, the real problem is that I get ready for work before I get to work. I'm already wearing my uniform. I will just commute in my uniform. So I never have to change when I get to work, which means I can be exactly on time and not have to waste my first 5 minutes getting changed.
You're the opposite of the average employee on that one. They should pay you to get changed. I genuinely believe that.
I mean, that might be true, but it's just like, if I'm scheduled at 4 o'clock, I will be there at 4 o'clock, ready to go. But I generally do not like to actually be early because I'm.
Because the logic of you should punch in 15 minutes before your start of your shift so you're ready to go at the start of your shift feels illegal.
Yeah, I should just be ready to go when my shift starts.
Yeah, that's fair game.
I wear my work shirts to
I personally, as a manager,
and then I go to work.
genuinely believed. I'm like, okay, you punch in at 4, get ready to work by 15. It's like, really? You're going to give everyone 15 minutes buffer? I'm like, yeah, they're humans. Also, they'll be less gross if they go wash their hands first.
I mean, I guess that's true.
People tend to be less gross if you let them, like, bring their uniform and have time to change into it and, like, use the restroom. I don't know. I just find giving people 50 minutes to start their day makes them less ugh. I mean, holistic reasons. Yeah.
I've never really thought about washing your hands as a part of starting your shift, but it's like that's, I go in there, I hang up my coat, I, put my lunch in the cooler, wash my hands. Like it's not like I'm working right at 4 o'clock, but I don't wear anything unusual to work.
Where like one of my kitchen managers would get so mad when people came dressed already because they'd give this big speech about how it's a contamination to wear your uniform outside. But also, if you're going to have that policy, you should probably be the one washing the uniforms. Because if you have to bring your uniform to wash it and then bring it back, you've lost that argument already. Because you told them to take it home with them.
I'm also fairly fortunate in that apparently the work shirts are fairly expensive at about $45 each. But our boss does not charge any employees for the shirts. And so I have a lot of shirts, which means
you have a nice rotation going on.
To go to work. I have a nice rotation, and I never have to wear a dirty shirt to work because I have enough that I have a clean one for every day.
I actually have like my name stitched into the arm kitchen chef's uniform sitting around somewhere, and I'm like, yeah, that one was sweet. So I'm going to actually break tradition and do a third icebreaker question because I feel like I dropped the ball on number 1 here, and then we'll wrap it up. Have you ever made a meme? Is the question. Have you made a meme to send to somebody before?
No. I never have.
So, I've made a couple back when I first started like building my internet profile where I made some like D&D memes. Like I really enjoy taking Magic the Gathering art and putting terrible puns on it. Like, what's a rogue's favorite material to make armor out of? Hide.
Okay.
So like I made some those, but I take deep pride in my GIF library I've made for Discord communicating with people. Like I literally went in on YouTube and made GIFs of like Lucy from Disenchantment for every possible situation I would need a Lucy from Disenchantment quote. And that comes up in my day-to-day basis a lot. Like the do it GIF, I probably send at least once a day to someone about to make a poor life decision.
Right.
So, if it's not one you've made, what kind of memes do you send? Do you send clips? Do you send memes? Do you send random manga screenshots titled LOL? Or do you just like, no, I'm more sophisticated. I use my words to communicate.
Well, I mean, it largely depends on who I'm communicating with, but mostly I just send puns. If I'm going to send something. Or, I mean, I guess I suppose if you consider Snapchat, because like whenever I'm walking around, especially in an unfamiliar city, I look for peculiar signs.
You know, I feel like that counts. I think sending a weird sign out of nowhere is a type of memeing, I think. I don't know. Our age might be showing here.
I don't know. It's just like, I see a sign and it's like, that's kind of a funny looking sign. Like, why did they need to make this sign and put it here?
I love the logic that whenever someone's made a sign and put it somewhere, it's because someone has justified the existence of that sign.
Well, okay. Another, probably not a good justification, but no, an excellent justification.
Correct.
But I was in Ontario somewhere, and there was a sign that said no laptops or recording devices in the washroom.
Oh no.
And it was like, so I thought this like, you needed to put a sign? That's kind of disturbing, but also kind of an intriguing sign. So that was one of the signs that I took a picture of. Ironically.
You broke the rule to do it. And with that, thank you everyone for tuning in to Carl and Richard present Deep Space and Dragons. Submit your random question to possibly win a mug. And I don't know.
I have that mug.
Something, buy a book. Bye.
Bye.